Bro, call me Springtrap the way I always come back. Even though my name is not William Afton, my name is Raya, and I've been gone for a while. Very valid reason though. I was finishing up my last semester of art school. I was on a mission to try out everything that I was bad at from recommendation of my professor. This was not an original thought of mine. After meeting with my professors and being brutally called out for my continuous bust up drawings with no backgrounds, I decided to change that. So welcome to the results of a semester-long project of me trying to improve my artwork before I graduated. After taking a look at some old art, I realized that the three things that I struggled with the most were painting landscapes, infrastructure, and perspective. So to start, I did what any sane person would do and did the thing that I thought would be the easiest, which was landscapes. And I was sadly mistaken. Anytime I've had to do anything related to landscapes, I have immediately noped out of it. So I decided to photo bash a couple of photos that I took in Japan to use as a reference. My main objective with this painting was using a textured brush to apply detail and focus on the overall composition and lighting rather than super tiny details. But because I was so focused on other things like lighting, that ended up being the most time-consuming thing about this piece. I just want to preface that people should be using references when they are attempting something that they are not good at, because I completely made up 90% of the lighting and I'm pretty sure it's accurate, but I wish I had something to rely on to know if I was actually doing it right. One thing that I will always be guilty of is putting characters in a piece. You will never catch me not doing that. So in order to subside my internal hatred for having to draw a landscape, I added 4 cute little guys in their little canoe boat to make me feel better. One thing that I definitely think helped with making this landscape a bit better is just the fact that it's imaginative. A lot of the greenery wasn't there originally, and obviously 4 men in a canoe are not smaller than a squirrel. So using that like fantastical feel was definitely easier in helping me be more laid back and not so nitpicky with this piece overall. I wouldn't say that we always did landscapes for art school, but I do have a couple of pieces that I look back on and kind of was like, you can really tell how much I hated being out there. But hindsight is 2020, even though my prescription is not. And I would say that this piece was actually a lot of fun to do, even though every time I had to do it in school, I ran away. So I don't know if it was just it being a school assignment or just me being able to be inside rather than outside. I took painting this semester, and for one landscape piece, I literally ended up sitting on the sidewalk right next to my car because I refused to go anywhere near grass for being afraid that I would be attacked by some type of bug. Regardless, I'm extremely proud of this. I actually did this piece way earlier in 2025. I want to say I did this maybe in like March or April. So seeing this like, I don't know, 10 months later is actually super duper cool. The next thing that I did was perspective, which first of all, I did actually use a reference for this. I want to say that I had this sketch from the summer. I had done it and I was really proud of it, and when I tried rendering it the first time, nothing was clicking, so I actually ended up having it for a couple months before I came back to it and ended up rendering it after my art skills improved. And I think that definitely ended up making this 10 times better than what it could have been, and I'm really proud that I decided to take a step away. But other than that, I think my main focal point was adding some type of comedic effect or relatability. The one thing I didn't want to do was blatantly copy the reference photo, so I worked really hard on adding different elements and changing up other elements to make sure that this piece was my own. This piece also introduces a character that I was working with basically throughout the entire semester, who I originally had used as a mascot for my redesign on a Pure Leaf bottle, and I just decided to continue using her likeness throughout this piece and my next piece. I think one of the hardest things to tackle with perspective is making sure that the straight lines not only line up, but just make sense. Another difficult thing is when you start adding the lighting, it's different everywhere. Some things get a little bit of light on one side and a little bit of light on the other side, and it gets really confusing very fast. I had a lot of different light sources going on in this piece, from just the regular light from outside to the TV to the switch, so that was definitely something that I was battling with for a while before I figured it out. I wouldn't say that it's 100% accurate, but again, After using a reference photo for the perspective, I actually did not touch another reference again. So all the lighting that I did was 100% from the dome. I think it turned out well. It looks okay to me. I don't know if it's exact, but you know, that's just how the cookie crumbles, I guess. Hi, this is me editing, and I just want to say that the amount of times I've said peace should tell you how much I had to change the way I talk about my art in school. And I just want to preface that, so I'm sorry for saying peace 1,000 times. This piece was extremely rushed. I ended up doing it maybe a day before or 2 days before I had to go and get my drawings printed to hang up for my show. So I'm very proud of the fact that I was able to get something so worked up so quickly, and I would argue that it is probably one of my best pieces to date. Finally, we get to my last and arguably my biggest struggle, which is infrastructure. Now, I do have a sketch for this piece, but it was on a different canvas, so I ended up just keeping it out anyways. At this point in the semester, I just had some like unnerving love for trains and just drawings of trains. So that's what the inspiration for this piece was. Kind of like the last piece, I had a lot of trouble initially rendering this. I wasn't really sure how the light sources were working, because if this piece were realistic, there would be at other side of the train where there would be also light coming from. So trying to balance the light from different perspectives was pretty difficult. And funny enough, for my first time drawing the inside of a train, I decided to make it doubly hard for myself by also adding a lowered perspective, which definitely did not make this any easier. But like I said with the landscapes, you will never catch me not drawing people, so to add another added difficulty on top of the other two was drawing like furries slash anthropomorphic characters. It's been something that I've been wanting to try for a while, so I figured that this would be the piece to do it, and I think they fit in pretty well, so I'm very proud of it. I did have a couple of references, mainly for the colors of the inside of a train. I used a lot of Japanese trains for inspiration because there is nothing cute about the subways in America. So instead, I decided to go with something more whimsy, because obviously, again, me and my fantasy drawings, you'll never catch me not doing one. I want to say my biggest focus was making sure that each character had a story of their own, and you can kind of get a grasp of who they are just through this one snapshot. Believe it or not, one of my biggest struggles was trying to integrate characters with their background. A lot of the time I would draw the characters first, and then after that I would start thinking about where they're placed, which always somehow ended up being some random colored background with a shadow of themselves. Once again, this blonde elf appears. She's not really a persona, but I don't know, I always put a little bit of myself into my characters. The story behind her, though, is after I finished my very first project in package design where she was featured in a pure leaf bottle, someone asked me if she would be incorporated in my show since they liked her design so much, and I was like, oh my gosh, that'd be kind of cool. So I just kept drawing her and kept drawing her, and I haven't drawn her since, but you know, maybe I'll think about it. I always want to try to make my pieces as colorful or visually interesting as possible, and I feel like I got that out of this, even though it took absolutely forever. Making things full of texture is definitely something that I need to work on, so if I ever do something like this again, I'll definitely consider it. And that's everything. I mean, this video obviously took forever to make, but I'm extremely proud of the results I got and just the overall growth that I had through making these 3 pieces. These pieces took a lot of time and effort, so I would love to know what you guys think of them down in the comments. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope to see you guys very, very soon. Happy holidays, and see you guys later.